Hi, this is David Stein of Money for the Rest of Us.
And I'm Bret Stein at Money for the Rest of Us. And today we're going to answer the question of whether you should wait to invest until after you've paid off all of your debt. And this question is really relevant for me. My wife just finished her master's degree, and it's left us with $79,670.19 of student debt. And we'd like to start investing as soon as we can.
Now, that's a lot of debt. I think the average student loan debt balance is about $30,000. So you guys have almost 3 times more than average. How did you decide whether you wanted to take on that debt load?
That's a great question. And there were several reasons that we were comfortable with that. One, this debt was for a master's degree and not an undergraduate degree. My wife and I both left university with no debt, and so this was our first time acquiring any student loan debt. And also, the field that my wife was going to, occupational therapy, has a median salary of $84,000. And so we were going into a field that we knew we would be able to pay back that debt on. And we also viewed it as investing in ourselves. And so it was something we were comfortable going into, even though we didn't love the idea of it.
That's an important point. When we talk about debt, there's different types of debt. There's consumer debt, where you take on debt just to go on vacation. Student loan debt is a completely different category because, as Bret mentioned, you're investing in yourself. And what that is known as human capital. Your human capital is an asset. It's your earning ability over time. We have financial assets like stock and bonds. Those are also assets. But human capital, we often don't think of that as an asset, but it is our earning ability. That debt, that student loan debt, can be used to improve one's earning capacity. And so we won't necessarily say it's good debt, but it's a type of debt that makes sense. It's somewhat similar to borrowing to purchase a house. A house over time should at least keep pace with inflation. And most people don't have the type of funds to pay for an entire house with cash. But you have an asset there that is securing the debt, as opposed to a consumer debt. It's just you bought something. Typically, it could be something that's depreciating in value. And so the type of debt matters. Student loan debt can often be a very important type of debt in order to improve one's human capital. The second point in deciding whether to invest or pay off debt is to recognize investing is a skill and takes time to learn. What are your thoughts on that, Bret?
I agree. And being in my 20s, that's a skill I want to be able to develop now. And I'm trying to be able to learn. And it's something that is much easier when there's more capital to be able to invest. Whereas if I put all of my money towards student debt right now and only used very small amounts to invest, I wouldn't be able to get much of a feel for how it might feel to invest in 20 years or so. I think it's also important to note how much investing when you're young can affect your returns later. Investing when you're younger in smaller amounts has more gains to it than investing more when you're in a later stage of life. And so it's something that we want to be able to start sooner versus than later.
Exactly. You want that compounding effect of investing over time, but you also have the compounding effect of your investing skill. So when you start young, you're investing, you're learning about different asset classes, asset types. You're learning just the feel of what it's like to make a trade or to invest. And as your sums grow over time, you'll have that skill set to be able to invest larger sums. And so it's important to start that young, which is why I think ultimately we can do both. We can invest and we can pay off debt. And there's an aspect to it where you feel like you're making progress. So if you're only focusing on one thing, you sort of feel like, well, I'm not investing at all, and maybe I'm falling behind, or I'm just not learning that. But if you're not paying off your debt, obviously that's also compounding. So you kind of have to do both and balance them both.
Absolutely. And that's what we've decided to do. And honestly, part of that isn't necessarily a logic reason as a feeling reason, right? It might get us ahead to invest a vast majority of our spare income versus pay off the debt, but it's really a burden to have that much debt over your head. It doesn't necessarily feel good. And so we've created a plan where we can aggressively pay off our debt. We have a 3-year plan to do that while still almost maximizing our IRA account on a yearly basis. And we do that so that we can feel better that we're still investing, we're still gaining that skill now while the risk level of investing is lower, while paying off the debt.
That makes sense. And I think our fourth point really gets to that. It is a personal preference. I think about Lapril and I, about 10 years ago, we decided to pay off our mortgage on our house. And there's lots of financial arguments for not paying off your mortgage. You can look at the interest rate you're paying, and you get the tax deduction, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to do it financially. But we want it to be unencumbered, just the feeling of not having any debt at all. And so we paid off the mortgage, and it's been 10 years. And then recently, we took out another mortgage on a different house. Not because we needed to, we could have paid cash, but because interest rates were so low that it just was more compelling, and we just didn't feel that need to not have the mortgage anymore. And so whether you maintain that debt balance or not, it's a preference, and it really is a preference on the type of debt. With consumer debt, all you're doing is you're taking future purchases and bringing them to the present, and then you have to pay them off over time. Often those are assets that are depreciating, a car or a vacation or something along those lines. And so, ultimately, that tends to be the type of debt we want to avoid. But debt that supports assets, such as your earnings capacity with human capital, or a house, potentially a rental real estate property, that can be debt that is more sustainable and can work with your overall financial plan. Any other concluding thoughts, Bret?
I think that's all I have. I'm excited to not have debt and be able to invest more personally. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like it. You can subscribe. We come out with videos almost weekly. You can also ask any questions you have in the comments, and we'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, have a great week.
Thanks.